Do you know that moment when you're cleaning your employer's office and find an envelope full of photos of dead women? I had that moment on a Tuesday morning at 9 o'clock while dusting the mahogany bookshelf in a $15 million penthouse in Manhattan. And it was at that exact moment I realized I worked for a serial killer, and he didn't know that I knew. Yet. My name is Margaret Santos. I'm 58 years old. I've worked as a domestic worker for 35 years, and I've just discovered that my employer, the respected businessman Richard Whitmore, killed at least 7 women in the last 10 years. And the worst part? I recognized one of them because I saw her alive for the last time leaving this apartment 3 years ago. Let me go back a bit. I need you to understand how I got here, how a simple maid from Queens ended up at the center of the biggest criminal investigation New York will see in the coming years. I started working for Mr. Richard 12 years ago. He had just separated from his first wife, lived alone in a huge penthouse in Manhattan, needed someone to take care of the house. The agency recommended me. I did the interview. He liked me because I was discreet, efficient, and didn't ask questions. "Margaret," he said that first day, "I value my privacy very much. I need someone who understands that what happens in this house stays in this house. Can you do that?" "Yes, sir, I can," I replied. And it was true. I've always been the type who doesn't get involved in employers' lives. I do my job, get my money, leave. Simple as that. He paid me well, very well, $4,000 a month to work Monday through Friday from 8 in the morning to 5 in the afternoon. No live-in work, no weekend work, days off on Saturdays and Sundays. For a domestic worker, that was gold. Mr. Richard was a businessman in real estate development. Heir to a fortune, he expanded his father's business, had apartments, estates, luxury cars. The penthouse where I worked had 4 suites, a living room with triple-height ceilings, city views, original artworks on the walls. Everything expensive, everything perfect. He was polite to me, always greeted me when he arrived, always thanked me for my work. He wasn't one of those rude employers who treat maids like furniture. He respected my schedule, always paid on time, gave me a Christmas bonus, end-of-year gift, a model employer. But there was something about him that always bothered me, a coldness in his eyes, a calculating way of looking at people, as if he was always evaluating, measuring, deciding whether you served some purpose for him or not.
In the first years, I didn't have much contact with him. I'd arrive at 8, he'd already left for work. I'd clean, organize, prepare his food that he'd heat up at night, and leave at 5. Sometimes we'd cross paths. A good morning, a see you tomorrow, and that was it. But after he remarried, things changed. His second wife was named Catherine. Beautiful, 38 years old. He was 52 at the time. Blonde, thin, one of those women who does Pilates every day and only eats salad. Nice to me at first. Called me Maggie, offered me coffee, asked about my family. They married in a small ceremony. She moved into the penthouse, and suddenly I had much more work. Because Catherine was one of those women who doesn't lift a finger at home. Left clothes thrown on the floor, dishes in the sink, wet towels on the bed. I cleaned everything silently. It wasn't my place to complain. But I noticed things, small things, like the way Mr. Richard looked at her when she wasn't watching. A cold look, almost disdainful. How he never showed affection, never a kiss, a hug, a caress in front of me. And Catherine seemed nervous, anxious. She walked around the house as if walking on eggshells, ate less and less, got thinner, had dark circles under her eyes. Once, I was cleaning the suite bathroom when I heard an argument. They were in the bedroom. The door was ajar. "You can't control me like this," Catherine was shouting. "I'm your wife, not your prisoner." "You are what I say you are. And if you don't behave, there will be consequences. What consequences? Are you going to hit me? Kill me? Silence. A heavy silence. And then, I don't need to do anything so crude. There are more elegant ways to solve problems. I left that bathroom quickly. Didn't want to hear more. Didn't want to get involved. But 2 months later, Catherine disappeared. Mr. Richard called me on a Thursday morning. "Margaret, you don't need to come today. Catherine traveled to visit her mother. I'll be away for a few days too. Resume on Monday." I thought it was strange. Catherine had never mentioned she was going to travel, hadn't packed bags, hadn't said anything. But it wasn't my problem. I had an unexpected day off. I took advantage of it.
When I returned on Monday, the penthouse was impeccable. Too impeccable, smelling of professional cleaning products, as if someone had done a deep clean. Catherine decided to stay longer with her mother, Mr. Richard told me. "Actually, I think we're going to separate. It wasn't working out." "I'm sorry, sir," I said, because that's what was expected of me to say. "Don't be. It was for the best." Catherine never came back. 3 months later, Mr. Richard filed for divorce on grounds of abandonment. She didn't even contest it, simply disappeared from his life. At the time, I didn't think much about it. Marriages end, people move on. I had my job, my life, my bills to pay. But now, holding those photos, everything made sense. Let me tell you about the morning that changed everything. It was Tuesday, July 23rd, 2025. I was cleaning Mr. Richard's office, a room where he normally forbade me to enter, but he had traveled to Los Angeles for 3 days and had asked me to do a general cleaning while he was away. "Clean everything, Margaret. I want the penthouse sparkling when I return." I was dusting the bookshelf when an envelope fell from behind an old encyclopedia. Brown envelope, unsealed. I opened it without thinking, thought they were documents that had accidentally fallen. They were photos. Polaroid photos. Old ones. 7 of them. 7 different women, all dead. All with the same mark on their necks, strangled. All with their eyes open, looking at the camera with an expression of frozen terror. My hands were shaking so much I almost dropped the photos. And then I looked closer, and I recognized one of them. Blonde hair, fair skin, blue eyes wide open in horror. Catherine! My former employer's wife, the woman who went to visit her mother and never came back. Dead, photographed, kept as a trophy. I felt bile rising in my throat. I ran to the bathroom, vomited everything I had eaten for breakfast. Mr. Richard had killed his own wife, and he had killed 6 other women. And he had proof kept in the penthouse as if they were souvenirs. I went back to the office with wobbly legs. I picked up the photos again, forced my eyes to look at them, to memorize each face, every detail. They were all beautiful women, between 30 and 45 years old. All appeared to have been strangled, all photographed in the same place. I recognized the wallpaper behind them. It was from the guest room of the penthouse. He killed them here, in the house where I worked, where I cleaned, My God! How many times had I cleaned blood without knowing? How many times had I mopped floors where someone died? I grabbed my cell phone, hands trembling. I photographed each Polaroid, all 7, and then, very carefully, I put everything back in the envelope, put the envelope back behind the encyclopedia exactly where it was. I finished cleaning the office on autopilot, then cleaned the rest of the penthouse and left at 5 o'clock as usual. But I didn't go home. I went to the police station. The detective who attended me was called Detective Sarah Martinez, a woman in her 40s, serious, efficient. She listened to my story without interrupting, looked at the photos on my cell phone with an increasingly grave expression. "Are you sure these photos were in his penthouse?" she asked. "Absolutely. I found them myself." "And do you recognize one of these women?" "I do. She was his second wife, Catherine Whitmore, disappeared 3 years ago. He said she went to visit her mother and never came back." The detective typed on the computer, frowned. Catherine Whitmore was registered as a missing person 3 years ago. Investigation archived for lack of clues. She had a history of depression. Family believed she ran away to start life elsewhere. She didn't run away. She was killed by him. Margaret, do you understand the gravity of what you're saying? Richard Whitmore is a respected businessman, a millionaire, has expensive lawyers. If we accuse him without solid evidence, he'll sue us and you'll lose your job. Possibly more than that. I have the photos. Photos on your cell phone. He can claim you fabricated them, that you planted the polaroids there to frame him. We need the original photos, and we need to find the bodies. So what do I do? The detective looked me in the eyes. You go back to work, act as if nothing happened, and pay attention. If he makes a slip, if he lets any information escape about where the bodies are, you call me immediately. Are you asking me to spy on my employer? I'm asking you to help the police catch a serial killer before he kills again. I went home that night feeling the weight of the world on my shoulders. Didn't sleep, laid there looking at the ceiling, replaying everything in my head.
I worked for a killer, a man who murdered women and kept photos of them. A monster in a suit and tie who paid me $4,000 a month and said, "Thank you, Margaret," every time I cleaned the house where he committed crimes. And now I had to go back there, pretend I knew nothing, and spy. Mr. Richard returned from Los Angeles on Thursday. I arrived at the penthouse at 8 in the morning, as usual, heart beating so hard I was sure he could hear it. "Good morning, Margaret," he said, smiling. Navy blue suit, perfectly cut, gray hair combed back, smell of expensive cologne. "How was the cleaning?" "It was good, sir. Everything clean, just the way you like it." "Great. I'm leaving now. I have meetings all day. If you need anything, call me." And he left, leaving me alone in the penthouse with the photos hidden in the office, with the secrets stored in the walls. I waited 15 minutes to make sure he wasn't coming back, and then I went to the office. The photos were still there, behind the encyclopedia, as if waiting for me. But this time, I searched more, rummaged through every drawer, every shelf, every corner of that office. And I found a diary, a notebook with a black cover, leather, closed with a small padlock that I forced open with a spatula from the kitchen. I opened the first page. Hunting diary, August 2015. My blood froze. I started reading, and with each page, the horror grew. Mr. Richard hadn't killed 7 women. He had killed 12. The 5 who weren't in the photos had been killed before I started working for him. And he documented everything, every encounter, every seduction, every murder, in sordid details that made me want to vomit. He chose specific women, always beautiful, always alone, always vulnerable in some way. Met them at bars, at events, on dating apps, seduced them, took them to the penthouse. And when they were distracted, When they thought they were going to have a romantic evening, he killed them. Manual strangulation. Always. That was his method. He said in the diary that he liked to feel the life escaping, that it was intimate, personal, and then he'd take a photo with a vintage Polaroid camera, because Polaroid doesn't leave a digital trail, no cloud file. It's just a physical photo that only exists if you keep it. Victoria is in the rose garden. Meant a victim named Victoria was buried where there used to be a rose garden. Amanda rests in the orchard. Body in the old apple orchard. Catherine sleeps with the horses. Buried in the old stable. 12 women, 12 lives, 12 families without answers. And I was reading about this in his office while he was in meetings, probably planning when to bring the next victim. I photographed every page of the diary with my cell phone, all of them, without exception. Took almost 2 hours. My hands were sweating so much I almost dropped my phone several times. When I finished, I put everything back exactly as it was. Closed the diary, put it in place, arranged the photos. And then I cleaned the entire house again to make sure I hadn't left any fingerprints out of place. At 5 p.m, I left, straight to the police station. I showed everything to Detective Martinez. The diary pages, the coded locations, the victims' names. "My God," she whispered, looking at the cell phone screen. "This is enough for a warrant. Margaret, you just unmasked a serial killer. What happens now?" "Now we set up an operation. We'll get a search and seizure warrant for the penthouse and the ranch. We'll go upstate to excavate, and when we have the bodies, we'll arrest him." "How long will it take?" "A few days. A week at most. Can you keep working there? Keep acting normal?" I wanted to say no. I wanted to run away from that job, from that city, from that life. But I thought about the 12 women, their families, the justice they deserved. I can. The following week was the worst of my life. Every day I arrived at that penthouse at 8 a.m. and pretended everything was normal. I cleaned, cooked, ironed clothes, while Mr. Richard walked around the house, sometimes talking on the phone, sometimes working in the office. And I knew what he was, what he did, and I had to smile and say, "Good morning, sir," as if nothing had happened. On Thursday of that week, he brought a woman to dinner. Tall, brunette, beautiful. Must have been about 40 years old. She laughed at his jokes, touched his arm, drank the expensive wine he served, and all I could think was, she's going to be next. I served dinner. They ate on the terrace. I cleaned the kitchen. And when I was leaving at 9 p.m, he had asked me to stay later to serve dinner. I heard him say to her, "Want to see my art collection? I have some amazing pieces in the guest room." The guest room. The room where he killed. My heart raced. I grabbed my cell phone, sent a message to Detective Martinez. "He has a woman here. He's going to kill her. Come now." She responded in seconds. "We're on our way. 10 minutes. 10 minutes. I needed to stop him from killing her for 10 minutes. I went back to the kitchen, grabbed a pot, hit it hard against the sink, made noise. Mr. Richard appeared in the kitchen door, irritated. "Margaret, what happened?" "Sorry, sir, I dropped it. I'm so clumsy." "It's okay. You can clean it up and go home. Thank you for dinner." "Actually, sir," I thought quickly, "I forgot to mention there's going to be a delivery here in 15 minutes. A package you ordered. Can I wait and receive it?" He frowned. I didn't order any package. Oh, it must be a mistake then. I'll call the courier and cancel. Do that, and you can go home after. He went back to the terrace, to the woman, to the victim he was preparing. 5 minutes passed. 7 minutes passed. I heard footsteps heading toward the guest room. 8 minutes. The bedroom door closing. 9 minutes. And then sirens. Police invading the penthouse, breaking down doors, shouting, "NYPD! Hands where we can see them!"
I ran to the hallway, saw police breaking down the guest room door, saw Mr. Richard with his hands around the woman's neck, saw her on the floor, struggling, eyes wide with terror. Saw police tackle him, handcuff him, drag him out. Saw the woman crying, being supported by a female officer, massaging her red neck where his hands had been seconds before. I had saved her. By seconds, but I had saved her. Detective Martinez came to me. "Margaret, you did the right thing. You saved her life." I couldn't stop shaking. They took Mr. Richard away in handcuffs. He looked at me as he passed by, and for the first time I saw emotion in those cold eyes. Hatred. "You," he spat, "you traitorous bitch. I trusted you." "And I trusted you were human," I replied. "Looks like we both were wrong." In the following days, the story exploded in the media. Manhattan serial killer arrested after 12 murders. Heroic maid unmasks killer employer. Police find 12 bodies on upstate New York ranch. They excavated the ranch, found all 12 bodies, exactly where the diary said they were. Catherine and the other 11, all identified, all returned to their families. The trial was quick. Evidence was overwhelming. Diary, photos, bodies, attempted murder with witnesses. They sentenced him to 360 years in prison, 12 consecutive life sentences. I testified, told everything, how I found the photos, how I read the diary, how I saved the last woman. The victims' families thanked me, cried with me, called me a hero, but I didn't feel like a hero. I felt guilty. Because for 12 years, I worked in that house, cleaned those rooms, mopped those floors. And some of those women died while I was there. There were days I'd arrive and the penthouse smelled of heavy cleaning products. Days the guest room was locked. Days Mr. Richard seemed more light, more satisfied. And I didn't notice, or didn't want to notice, because it was easier not to see. Easier to accept the $4,000 a month and not ask questions. Catherine died 3 years ago. I worked in that house for 3 more years after she was killed. I cleaned, cooked, organized, while her body rotted, buried on a ranch upstate. How did I not notice? That question haunts me every day. After the trial, I couldn't work as a domestic worker anymore. Couldn't enter strangers' houses, couldn't trust. I used the money the media paid me for interviews, and yes, they pay, to open a small business, a laundromat in Queens. Nothing big, nothing glamorous, but it's mine, and I don't need to enter anyone's house. But there's something I never told anyone, something I discovered later, something that changes everything. 3 months after Mr. Richard's arrest, I received a letter. No return address, just my name and address. I opened it. Inside was a photo, polaroid, old, of me, sleeping, on the penthouse couch. I recognized the day. It was 5 years ago. I had felt sick at work, low blood pressure. Mr. Richard told me to lie down on the living room couch, gave me sugar water, told me to rest before going home. I slept for an hour. And he had taken a photo of me, like he took of the victims. Why wasn't I killed? Why did he let me live? That question eats at me. And then, 2 weeks ago, I visited him in prison.
I needed to know. We sat, separated by glass, phones on each side. He was thinner, older, hair all white now, but his eyes remained cold. "Margaret," he said, almost smiling. "What a surprise! Why didn't you kill me?" I went straight to the point. "You took a photo of me sleeping, like you took of the others. Why did I survive?" He leaned back in his chair, looked at me with that calculating expression I knew so well. "Because you were useful alive. The others, I killed them because I could, because it was convenient, because it satisfied my need. But you cleaned the evidence. You organized the penthouse after the events. You were my unwitting accomplice. Why would I kill my best alibi?" I felt nausea rising. "All those times you asked me to do deep cleaning," my voice came out weak, "was after I had my fun. Yes, you cleaned blood, Margaret. You just didn't know it. I used special products first, but you did the final mopping. Your fingerprints were everywhere. If they ever investigated me, you'd be a suspect too." He had used me for 12 years, had turned me into an accomplice without me knowing. "But then you betrayed me," and his voice became hard. "After everything I did for you, paid you well, treated you well, and you stabbed me in the back. You killed 12 women. And you helped clean up, even without knowing. You helped. So don't come here playing saint, Margaret. We both have blood on our hands." I hung up the phone, got up, left that prison running. He was right. Even without knowing, even without meaning to, I had helped a serial killer hide his crimes for 12 years, had cleaned blood, had mopped floors where women died, had washed sheets that probably had evidence. I was an accomplice. Not legally. The lawyers assured me of that. I didn't know, had no way of knowing. I was a victim too. But morally, I carry this every day. Every time I see a news report about violence against women, every time I hear someone say, "How did nobody notice?" Every time victims' families appear on TV asking for justice, I think, I was there. I could have noticed earlier, could have saved some of them. Catherine could be alive if I had paid more attention that day I heard the argument. The 12th victim, the one who almost died, only survived because I found the photos by chance, by luck, because an encyclopedia fell. And if it hadn't fallen, how many more would he have killed? These questions don't let me sleep. So let me ask you questions too. Questions you need to answer for yourself. Do you really pay attention to the people around you? To your employer, to coworkers, to neighbors? Do you really see when something is wrong? Or do you choose not to see because it's easier? Because I chose not to see for 12 years. Chose to accept the salary, do the job, leave. Chose to ignore the signs that were there all along. And 12 women died. I'm not legally responsible for his crimes, but I am responsible for my voluntary blindness, for my choice not to ask questions, not to get involved, not to notice. And now that you know my story, you have a choice too. You can judge me, call me an accomplice, condemn me for not seeing the obvious, or you can recognize that everyone does this. We all ignore signs. We all choose not to see what we don't want to see. We all move forward because it's easier than facing uncomfortable truths. The difference is that the consequences of my blindness were 12 dead women. What are the consequences of yours? Think about it. Think about how many times you saw something strange and said nothing. How many times you heard something wrong and pretended you didn't hear. How many times you chose convenience over courage. Because that's what this story is about. It's not about a monster. It's about all of us who allow monsters to exist because it's easier to look the other way. But wait, I'm not finished yet. Because this story has one more twist, one last truth that will change everything you just heard. Remember I said I visited Mr. Richard in prison 2 weeks ago? That he told me I was useful alive? I lied. Well, I didn't completely lie. I did visit him, but the conversation was different. Very different. When I sat on the other side of the glass, when I picked up the phone, the first thing he said was, "Finally, I was expecting you to show up sooner." Expecting? I asked. Of course. You need to know the truth, and I need to tell it before it's too late. Truth about what? He leaned forward, looked around to make sure no one was listening, and then whispered into the phone. "Margaret, do you really think it was a coincidence you finding those photos exactly when you found them, exactly at the right moment to save that last woman?" My heart started beating faster. "The envelope didn't fall by accident," he continued. "I let it fall, pleased it loosely on purpose because I wanted you to find it." Why? Because I was ready to be caught. Tired. 12 women. 15 years doing this. I was getting careless, losing control. It was a matter of time until I made a fatal mistake, so I decided to end it on my own terms. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "You're saying you orchestrated your own arrest?" "I'm saying I used you for it. You were perfect, Margaret. Discreet, reliable, with a strong enough conscience to do the right thing. I knew that if you found the evidence, you'd go straight to the police. And that's exactly what you did." "And the last woman? Were you really going to kill her?" He smiled, a cold smile. "No, I knew you had called the police. I waited for them to arrive. It was theater, Margaret, to make sure they caught me red-handed, to make sure the conviction was absolute, no chance of appeal, no chance of getting out." I was shaking. "Why would you want that?" And then he said something that chilled me to the bone. "Because there's someone out there, someone who knows what I did, someone much more dangerous than me. And if I wasn't in prison, protected, watched 24 hours a day, I'd be killed." "Who?" "My brother." "Brother?" Mr. Richard had never mentioned having a brother. "You didn't know?" he asked, reading my expression. "Of course not. Nobody knows. Because he's dead, officially. Died in a car accident 20 years ago. Burned body, identified by dental records. Could have been forged. If he had money and connections, it wouldn't be difficult. But Margaret, it's been 20 years. If he exists, why hasn't he done anything yet? Because he was waiting for the right moment? Or because he doesn't exist? Richard might be playing with you, creating paranoia. That's what psychopaths do." She was right, probably. But then things started happening. 2 weeks after the visit, someone broke into my laundromat. Didn't take money, didn't take equipment, just ransacked everything. Opened every drawer, every cabinet, as if looking for something specific. A week after that, a car followed me for 3 blocks. Black car, tinted windows. When I stopped at a light, it stopped behind me. When I moved, it moved. When I turned onto a busy street, it disappeared. And 3 days ago, I found an envelope at my door. Inside was a photo, polaroid, of me entering the police station the day I took the evidence about Mr. Richard. And on the back, handwritten, "I know what you did, and you will pay for taking my brother from me." I took it to the police. They finally believed the brother might be real. They're investigating. Gave me police protection. A patrol car passes my street every 2 hours. But it's not enough. Because if Thomas Whitmore is really alive, if he's really hunting me, if he really wants revenge, he'll succeed. Eventually. And the irony of all this, I saved a serial killer from being killed by revenge, and now it's me being hunted. Karma? Justice? Consequence? I don't know. What I do know is that now I understand how those 12 women felt in the moment before dying, knowing someone was after them, that there was nowhere to run, that it was just a matter of time. Absolute terror. And deserved? Maybe. Because I could have saved them. All of them. If I had paid attention, if I had asked questions, if I had chosen to see instead of ignore. So if Thomas finds me, if he kills me, it would be cosmic justice. The 12 women avenged through the death of the blind maid who didn't save them. Poetic, in a way. But there's something you need to know. Something I haven't told yet. And this is the part where everything you heard until now is questioned. Remember I said I found the envelope falling from the shelf by chance? That it was coincidence? I lied. I knew the envelope was there because I had seen Mr. Richard putting it there months before. When I entered the office to clean and he didn't see me arriving, I saw him taking out the photos, looking at them with an expression of satisfaction, storing them behind the encyclopedia. And I did nothing. For months. I knew there was something hidden there, something he didn't want anyone to see. And I ignored it. Because it wasn't my problem. Because I didn't want to lose my job. Because it was easier to pretend I didn't see. Until my conscience started eating at me. Until I couldn't sleep anymore. Until I decided I needed to know. That's why I waited for him to travel. That's why I searched. It wasn't chance. It was choice. I could have searched months earlier. Could have saved some of those women. But I chose my security, my comfort, my job. And women died because of my cowardice. So when Mr. Richard said he orchestrated his own arrest, part of me was relieved because it meant I wasn't a hero. I was a puppet. I was used. And in some perverse way, that took away part of my guilt. But it doesn't. Does it?
Because I saw him hiding that envelope, saw it and did nothing for months. And now I'm being hunted by a phantom avenger who may or may not exist, by a brother who may be real or may be the last manipulation of an imprisoned psychopath. And I deserve it. I deserve every second of fear, every moment of paranoia, every time I wake up in the middle of the night thinking there's someone in the house. Because those 12 women felt this in the end. When they realized they were going to die. And I could have prevented it. So this is my story, the true story. I'm not a hero. I'm a coward who finally found courage too late. I'm not a victim. I'm an accomplice who woke up when the blood was already cold. And I'm guilty of omission. Of cowardice, of choosing convenience over conscience. And you? Are you identifying with any part of this story? Are you remembering some moment when you saw something suspicious and said nothing, when you heard something wrong and pretended you didn't hear, when you chose comfort instead of courage? Because this isn't just my story. It's everyone's story. Every maid who sees abuse in the house where she works and doesn't report because she needs the job. Every employee who knows the boss is stealing but doesn't speak because they're afraid of being fired. Every neighbor who hears screams but doesn't call the police because they don't want to get involved. Every person who sees injustice and turns their face away because it's not their problem. We're all accomplices of something, of some crime, of some tragedy we could have prevented if we had the courage. And the victims pay the price for our cowardice. So, next time you see something suspicious, hear something wrong, feel that something isn't right, remember me. Remember the 12 women, and choose to be brave instead of comfortable. Because the difference between life and death, between justice and impunity, between light and darkness, is just one choice. Your choice. And now, I'll ask you the final question. The question that will decide if you really understood this story. If you were me, that morning months ago, when I saw Mr. Richard hiding the envelope, would you have searched? Would you have investigated? Would you have reported it? Or would you have done exactly what I did? Turned your face, gone on with your life, ignored it? Think carefully before answering, because it's easy to judge when it's not you risking your job, your security, your life. It's easy to be brave in the comfort of your home watching someone else's story. But when it's you in the situation, when it's your life at risk, when it's your livelihood on the line, would you really be different from me? I'm finished. Oh, and just one more thing. One last truth. The envelope at my door with the photo and the threat, with the message from the brother? I put it there myself. Thomas doesn't exist. Never did. Mr. Richard's brother really died 20 years ago. It was confirmed. DNA, everything. Mr. Richard invented the story of the living brother to scare me, to have control over me even from inside prison. Last manipulation of a psychopath. And it worked. I became paranoid, scared, started seeing threats where there weren't any. The break-in at the laundromat? Common thieves looking for money. The police caught them 2 weeks later. Had nothing to do with me. The car following me? Coincidence. Uber driver looking for an address. And the envelope? Me. I bought the Polaroid camera, took a photo of myself, wrote the message, put it at my door. Why? Because I need the fear, need the threat, need to believe I'm paying for my omission. Because if I'm not being punished, then I need to punish myself. It's my form of penance, living with paranoia, with fear, with guilt. It's what I deserve. And maybe it's what we all deserve when we choose cowardice instead of courage. Now I'm really finished. Or am I? Because the truth about this story, the real truth, is that you'll never know what's real and what's a lie. Half of what I told you is true, half is fiction. Did I work for a millionaire? True. Was he a serial killer? You decide. Did I find evidence? Maybe. Was he arrested? Search the newspapers. See if you can find it. Does the brother exist? I don't know. Do you? Did I create the threats? Or is someone really hunting me? The only absolute truth in this story is the question it asks. Do you have the courage to see, to speak, to act? Or will you choose to turn your face like I did? And when the consequences come, and they always come. Will you be able to live with them? That's the question. Not whether this happened or not, but whether it could happen, and what you would do if it happened to you. Think about it. Think carefully, because maids see everything, know everything, are in every corner of the house where you don't notice. Cleaning your secrets, organizing your lies, keeping your truths. And one day, one of them might decide to speak. I hope you don't have anything to hide, because if you do, well, you already know how this story ends.